So, picture this. The date is November 21st, 1802, and we are setting sail on the merchant ship the Putnam. The mission? Get to Sumatra, a place with treacherous reefs but also incredibly valuable pepper. But you know, the real story here, the real journey, it isn't the one across the ocean. It's the one happening inside the mind of the man who's just taken charge. This is the very first command for a self-taught navigator, an absolute genius named Nathaniel Bowditch.
And this thought, right here, this is what this whole story is about. The second that ship left the port, this idea just hit Bowditch with its full, crushing weight. For the very first time in his life, there was nobody else to ask. There was no higher authority. Every single decision, the fate of every single man on board, it all rested squarely on his shoulders.
You know, it seems like a simple question, right? But the answer is anything but. Bowditch's journey isn't just a sailing trip. It's practically a masterclass in what leadership looks like under the most intense pressure you can imagine. We're going to follow him through his trials and see just how he answers this very question.
What's so fascinating to me is that Bowditch's first big test wasn't some pirate ship appearing on the horizon or a hurricane. Nope. It was this internal battle, what was called the awful aloneness of command. It was a war fought completely inside his own head. And right away, there was this disconnect. See, the crew, they were expecting the stereotypical sea captain. You know, the guy who roars orders, who projects his authority with sheer volume. But instead, they got Bowditch, a man who spoke quietly, gave these calm, clear instructions, and just saw no reason to yell. And this quiet, almost scholarly nature of his, it created this little flicker of bewilderment among the men. This was not the kind of captain they were used to. So, while he's projecting this calm exterior, this is what was just churning inside his mind. He was haunted by the memory of his own father, who'd lost his ship and, as they said, had the tuck taken out of him. He kept thinking about having to face the wives and kids on the wharf if he lost a man. Every single potential threat, from an enemy warship to an uncharted reef, was now his problem. His and his alone. Well, that internal struggle was about to meet its first major external test. Right in the middle of the Indian Ocean, a terrifying storm starts bearing down on them. But Bowditch, he wasn't going to fight it with brute force. He was going to fight it with his mind.
Just try to imagine this scene for a second. The first mate, Mr. Dinny, he is completely baffled. There's barely enough wind to even move the ship, but these massive, powerful waves are just crashing over the deck, pounding the Putnam to pieces. It's unnatural, it's eerie, it's terrifying. But for Bowditch, this wasn't just random chaos, it was a set of readable signs.
And this is where Bowditch's unique style of leadership just shines. Instead of shouting orders, he starts teaching. He calmly explains to his terrified cabin boy that a typhoon is basically like a giant spinning top. The winds inside are incredibly violent and fast, sure, but the entire storm system itself moves pretty slowly across the ocean. He literally turned a moment of pure panic into a science lesson, using knowledge to wrestle back control over the fear on his ship.
But, you know, logic can only do so much when you're staring at a wall of wind and water. And the cabin boy's question, it just cuts right to the heart of it all. It's the voice of every single man on that crew asking the one thing that's on everybody's mind. What happens if your brilliant plan fails and we all die?
And Bowditch had a calm, scientific answer for that, too. He explained exactly what they would do. Heave to on a port tack. See, by having a procedure, a plan for even the absolute worst-case scenario, he didn't just quiet the boys' fears. He proved to the entire crew that his authority didn't come from shouting. It came from undeniable competence. He knew what he was doing, and that was way more powerful than any roar could ever be. So, after surviving the typhoon, they finally make it to Sumatra, but the danger here is totally different. It's not the raw power of nature anymore. Now it's the tense, unpredictable world of negotiating with armed men who seem to hold all the cards. The local ruler, a guy called the Dato, tries to back him into a corner. Surrounded by men with daggers, the Dato names this outrageous price for the pepper. Bowditch doesn't argue. He doesn't even haggle. Without saying a single word, he just slams the money chest shut and orders his men to get ready to leave. I mean, what a bluff. For 5 long, silent minutes, surrounded by a swarm of armed men, he just waits. And it works. His nerve holds. But this little victory gives him absolutely no time to rest. That very same night, pacing the deck, Bowditch makes this horrifying discovery.
The young sailor on watch, a kid named Corey, is fast asleep. In these hostile waters, an unguarded ship is basically an open invitation for a massacre. The entire crew was totally vulnerable.
And this is the moment that the quiet, reserved captain finally snaps. When the crew comes running up thinking they're being boarded, Bowditch unleashes this rare burst of pure fury. This wasn't anger about a broken rule. This was the raw, explosive release of a man who had just stared into the abyss and realized how terrifyingly close they all came to never waking up again. So with the cargo secured, they start the voyage home. But the challenge now is something else entirely. It's not a single, dramatic event. This is a slow, soul-crushing battle of attrition against the sea itself.
When they left the Isle of France, hopes were really high. The Putnam was a fast ship. With a good wind at their back, they could easily knock out 150 miles in a single day. The crew was dreaming about being back home in Salem by late October.
But the Atlantic, well, it had other plans. They got absolutely slammed by these relentless headwinds. Instead of soaring home, they were crawling. On some days, after a full 24 hours of fighting the gales, they had made less than 15 miles of progress. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a slow, agonizing grind.
And the psychological toll of this was just immense. That hope of being home in October, gone. Then the new hope of being home by early December, that disappeared too. By Christmas Eve, they were still out there, battered, exhausted, and hopelessly far from home. And for Bowditch, the weight of his crew's morale was now piled on top of all his other burdens.
And then, finally, the storms break. They are right off the coast of New England. They are practically home. They've survived typhoons, armed standoffs, endless gales, but the ocean has one last test for them, and it might just be the most terrifying one of all.
As the rain and sleet finally let up, a new threat emerges. And the first mate, a seasoned sailor who has seen everything, he delivers this grim verdict. Whatever this new thing is, it's worse than the storms. It's worse than the typhoon. The threat is fog. But it's not just any fog. Mr. Denny can't even finish his sentence. It's a fog so thick, so absolute, it feels like a living thing. They are completely blonde, surrounded by treacherous coastlines they can't see, sailing on nothing but instruments and instinct.
And this brings us all the way back to our central question. Throughout this whole voyage, Nathaniel Bowditch proved he could navigate the ocean's dangers and the complex fears of his crew. But the ultimate test of command, it turns out, isn't just about facing the dangers you can see. It's about what you do when you are completely and utterly blind. How do you lead when you yourself have absolutely no idea what lies even 100 feet ahead?